Hi creators, it's Claire from Right Accounts, and today we're going to cover off 4 factors against using a bookkeeping spreadsheet. Let's face it, money is a key factor in any business, and if you're a sole trader, without money you aren't able to pay yourself, and who wants to work for no pay? So when you're in the early stages of business, using a bookkeeping spreadsheet to save paying a monthly subscription for software can seem like a no-brainer. But it's important to look beyond simply the upfront cost factor, because there are a few key areas where using a spreadsheet will impact your business. So I've outlined 4 factors, and I've mainly covered these from the perspective of a low-priced sheet or a DIY version, but there are some quite fancy and quite expensive spreadsheets out there which admittedly I haven't tried, but I do suspect a lot of these factors would also apply. So let's look at the 4 factors. The first one is cost. Now, one of the main advantages, as I've said, of using a spreadsheet is you don't have the ongoing subscription. But what's overlooked is that the spreadsheet is potentially going to cost you money at the end of the financial year and the end of every financial year potentially. So if you use a tax accountant, part of their job is to validate and verify your numbers. They should be checking that your spreadsheet works properly, the formulas are valid, the formulas are correct, they're including the appropriate cells, that you've not inadvertently missed, say, B2 that has data and you're only doing your sums from B3. And funnily or not, as the case may be, the more complicated your spreadsheet becomes, to save you time, the more checking the tax accountant needs to do, which, you guessed it, costs you money. And I'd say a tax accountant ranges from $200 to $350 an hour, so figuring out your fandangled spreadsheet can actually cost a significant amount of money. In comparison, if you're using a software the tax accountant is using, they're familiar with, they know well, that check-in is really minimized because they know exactly what happens in the software and they don't have to spend ages checking the formulas. The second factor that will impact it is time. Now, a spreadsheet seems so simple. Just enter the money coming in and the money going out. It's pretty quick, it's pretty easy, it's easy enough to set up, and you don't have to learn how to use the software, which buttons to press in which order. All true. But once you start needing the more advanced parts of bookkeeping, it can actually take a lot of spreadsheet prowess, and if that isn't something you have, that means you're going to have to learn to make the spreadsheet do those things. Things like, do you want to see a monthly breakdown of income and expenses over the last 12 months? You should, because it's really useful. What about a month-to-month comparison of last month versus the same time last year, or even this month versus 6 months earlier? Again, this has really good insights, and actually when we were doing JobKeeper, this information was essential. Does your spreadsheet do that? The software certainly do. How long, how much time would it take you to either build that functionality if it's something you want on an ongoing basis, or simply just access that data? How long would that take you? Initially, learning a new software is going to take time, but it will pay you back in the medium and long term, because bookkeeping softwares can now automate so much of the process with their streamlining features that it's so easy and so quick to actually get through doing your bookkeeping. The third factor is around assets, liability, and equity. And one of the major aspects that most simple, straightforward spreadsheets don't cover is the double entry part of bookkeeping. What is that? Well, double entry is tracking where money is coming from or going. So we have money being generated and used in the business, income and expenses. But where exactly did that money come from or go to? So an example would be, you paid an expense. Did you pay using the cash the business generated, or did you pay using your own personal funds? It's a really important distinction. When you send that invoice, has it been paid into the bank account or is it sitting in accounts receivable? They're both assets, but they're very different assets, and we can only call on the one in the bank to be able to pay for expenses we have tomorrow. We can't use our accounts receivable to pay for expenses. So tracking how much money the owner puts into the business is essential information for me. Otherwise, how are you going to know if your business is viable? Are you continually having to cash flow your business? How are you going to know how much the business cost you to set up and what money you should be looking to pay yourself back? Because any other investor would expect to be paid back their investment. Don't you expect to be paid back your investment from this business? This business, I'm sure, doesn't exist to just use your personal funds. So that is really important, tracking how much you have invested into the business. The fourth factor, in fact, is taxes. Registering for GST is a big deal. Firstly, huge congratulations, it is an important milestone. Don't forget to celebrate. But secondly, there is now more emphasis than ever on accurately tracking income and expenses in a timely manner. And generally that is at least once every 3 months. So adding up the GST you collected from customers and any refunds you have on expenses, with the GST you paid to others like suppliers and any refunds you gave to customers, are essential to be able to work out what you need to pay to the government, and it's actually quite a detailed process. And unfortunately, it's generally not every item that comes into and goes out of your bank account or into and out of your business. So things like bank fees, sales to other countries, and purchases online from companies can be GST free. Some of them have agreements where if you provide your ABN and you register for GST, they don't charge you GST. So being able to track and separate what has GST from what doesn't have GST is really important, because it's not just 10% of what came in and 10% of what went out. Plus, timing on that is really important, because it's not just 10% of what you invoiced, it's actually 10% of the invoices that were paid to you. Because we complete GST on a cash basis, not on accruals basis, for small businesses anyway, and I'm not going to get into what that is, but if you don't track it correctly with the correct timing, you could end up paying out GST you haven't actually collected from a customer yet, aka cash you don't have. So tracking that accurately is really important. And in softwares, I won't say it happens automatically, but it is really streamlined, and cash basis is very emphasized. So to sum up, spreadsheets versus software. Spreadsheets are okay for a while, especially if the choice is spreadsheet or nothing at all. It's either spreadsheets or I'm going to avoid my finances. But spreadsheets really don't scale with your business. If you're a sole trader and a bit of a spreadsheets whiz, you can probably get away with it until you reach the GST registration threshold, or you want to employ somebody, because payroll reporting is mandatory at every pay cycle, and you would not, believe me, want to try and create a payroll in a spreadsheet. That is a whole other beast. Now, secondly, there are reasons we have double entry bookkeeping, and this potentially isn't the basis for your spreadsheet. I'm not going to go into what double entry is. It's around the assets, liabilities, and equity, but it also has lots of inbuilt cross checks and balances to ensure that everything is accounted for properly. If you do need help choosing a software, if you're finally like, my spreadsheet is no longer enough, I want this to scale, or you actually just want your software to work for you, then book in a chat and we can just have a chat about and go through what may work for you. If the video has been useful, I'd love you to give it a thumbs up or comment and let me know your thoughts on spreadsheets versus software. You can also subscribe to receive more content like this on making business finance easier, quicker, and actually work for your business.